Hello and welcome to this episode of the Catechast, the first one since it's been released.
Yeah, this is the first time we're recording since we've released any episodes.
Wow.
How do you feel about that, James?
I think the podcast has been received more warmly and strongly than I had imagined.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that you thought by this point it'd all be hookers and blow and
100%.
wild degenerate.
Wait, are you not having hookers and blow?
I don't have the finances.
That's why I
have a family to look after.
Yeah. Well,
If I get hookers and blow, they all need hookers and blow.
look at just judging by the way you look, though. Today, you would think that James has been on the hookers and blow, but James is very ill.
I think I got some sort of flu that's penetrated my bones. I spoke to our friend Father Oleg, who... are we releasing this one
Before the other one.
before the other one?
Yeah.
So he hasn't been on the podcast yet, but he will be.
Yeah.
I just told him that I thought I was going to die, and he was like, very clearly thought that was a
Ridiculous thing.
complex that I had developed. And we then spoke about other people's delusions. But he was like, you should get that.
Looked at the whole about to die thing.
Yeah, he said, just go to a doctor that you trust. He spoke about his doctor. Everyone should have a doctor that they trust. We've been speaking about doctors you trust. I haven't lined that up yet. You did. I don't know if I should do it before. I go to Perth on Thursday.
Most doctors have been compromised these days.
I don't trust doctors the way I used to just on a gut level trust all doctors. Even just as I get older.
Hashtag not all doctors.
And I learned that some doctors are merely very lazy and unquestioning and are more interested in writing you a prescription and charging you $80 than they are making sure you're well.
It's almost like they work for someone other than us.
They work for themselves. I think. Oh, you think they work for some big...
The pharmaceutical companies.
Oh. I thought...
Well, not all doctors.
Yes.
Hashtag not all doctors. Anyways, I thought what we could do, given it's the first time we've recorded since the podcast came out, and so welcome everybody to the podcast. It's so nice to have you.
So nice to have you. We are alienated now that we know what people like and...
Well, I definitely feel a bit more self-conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
I've never been so unself-conscious as I am right now because I'm going to die this week.
I wish you cared more, to be honest.
I could have put something on, hey?
So I just thought we'd have a little shout out to some of our fans.
Oh, this is a fan respect podcast?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Much respect.
So Stamper1994 has commented on several of our YouTube videos. Thank you, Stamper1994.
Thank you, Stamper.
Most recently, they, not knowing their gender, said, it's an interesting formula for a show. One man with a cigarette who knows his catechism is joined by a very moody non-smoker who kind of knows his catechism and could perhaps use a cigarette.
Yeah.
To explain the catechism filled by a man who is very into 90s home videos aesthetic.
That's you.
I'm not sure if it's a winning formula. Time will tell. Given that James is bewildered by every other question in the catechism and answers with a doubtful yeah to every explanation offered by Jack while inventing heresies by the minute, it will certainly take a while to get through, but maybe this is what the church needs. You will know if this is truly the new evangelization if you're eventually able to monetize the show and make an annual 5 figures from it. That is the dream. But I think you're aiming too small, 6 figures.
I think the point is that only if a thing makes money can we know that the spirit is behind it.
That we're only truly evangelizing if we're getting cash.
That's not a new heresy. That's rather an old one.
That's rather an old one. Yeah, that's the Simon the Magus heresy there.
Joel Osteen I was going for.
I think the two most likely outcomes are, 1, the Catechast converts first Russia and then the world.
Yeah, that's very important to prevent nuclear war, I'm told.
Vladimir Putin, if you're listening, we love you. Number 2...
Is he not a Christian?
He's some sort of Christian, I'm sure. Number 2, James appears in the last episode with a skull cap, insists on being referred to as Imam James Donald McCann, and demands that listeners and viewers submit to Allah, the one in one God, without weakness.
I realised quite late that he meant last as in ultimate, not previous.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could definitely... I've been looking into Islam this week.
Islam.
We've taken a couple of weeks off doing the podcast, and I must say I have immediately started looking up new religions that might just tickle me in more exciting ways.
Better podcast ideas.
Well, Islam is an interesting one. Do you know there are like 10 different... There's like one Quran. But there are a variety of different acceptable ways to read the Quran with different stresses and emphases.
Much like the Bible.
That does change the meaning. No, but like... This would be the equivalent of... I mean, the Greek is the Greek, right?
I'm not even Greek. That's a wire joke. You won't get it.
Excuse the coughing. The other one I looked up today, which was not Islam, but I thought would be an interesting, is the free zone, which is the best I can describe it, I think, is Scientology Protestantism. They've retained the central teachings of Scientology, but
Have schismed off.
Have schismed from the control structures of the church.
Is Tom Cruise part of that one?
No,
I want no part of it.
An Orthodox.
Whatever Tom Cruise is part of, yeah, he's
but
an
isn't it
Orthodox.
cool to think some people went, oh, we love this Xenu souls in the
we love
volcano
this.
stuff. That's obviously true.
Yeah.
But L. Ron Hubbard was a fallen man, and the church that he built has problems. So, do you know Shelley Muscovich?
No.
I don't want to go too hard on Scientology because they have a policy of destroying they have
Their
like
enemies.
a public policy, I think, of destroying the lives of their enemies.
Yeah.
So maybe let's just say,
I mean, what could they do to us?
Interesting and positive.
Yeah.
Man, they find stuff. They
What could they do to us that we haven't
they
done
have
to
this
ourselves?
public statement that's like everyone who has ever come after the Church of Scientology has committed a murder, and we just have to find it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
so let me once again just reinstate my mal-educated but broadly speaking positive opinion of the Church of Scientology. The Church of Scientology, an open question that may be a happy answer. Not like these free zone beatniks. I hope they're repressed.
Anyways, some of our other fans
Cudgeled even.
includes TS-GQ3VE,
Okay.
who commented on one of our earlier.
Boop, boop. Boop, boop. Sounds like a toaster.
Came for the doctrinal purity, but discovered the hottest hot take on quiz nights I've ever heard.
Oh, did we do an episode where I attacked quiz nights?
I think you attacked me, actually. Yes.
Look, I've softened my position on quiz nights now that I've hosted
But not
many of
on
them
me.
again. Oh, not on you?
No.
No, I still think you're going for the wrong reasons.
What else? Drunk Boy says it feels like it's after Sunday Mass and the boys are smoking darts in the courtyard.
Isn't that a nice vibe?
Cool.
Thank you, Sam, for conveying that vibe to our listeners.
Yeah, I mean, there are other ones from
And
the
viewers.
YouTube that I think we'll just leave.
No, I think we should definitely do that one that quotes the time warp. I thought that was nice, and it's always good to have people out there watching, paying attention.
And then we've received a couple of messages on our Instagram. I don't know if maybe they don't want this public, but
You don't have to say their name.
well, I won't say their name. But yeah, some very nice things were said in those messages that they enjoyed the podcast. Basically,
Nice.
yeah, yeah.
Do you want to find out some of the countries that... Because I don't think you know how to use the Acast.
No, I do. I figured it out. I'm
did?
so smart.
Can you see the countries that people are from?
Lots of countries, mostly Australia and the US. So welcome to all our US listeners. Welcome to our Japanese listener. We have a Japanese listener.
I don't want to log into...
To our Belgian listener, thank you very much for listening.
It's people from all over the world. It's so nice. Hold on.
I wish it broke it down even more so you could see like the states in Australia or the states in the US.
See the city.
Can you?
Yeah.
What? This is so cool. I'm learning things live on air.
We love having a podcast. Hundreds of people are loving the podcast. Oh, I'm in low power mode.
It's surprising how many people like the podcast. I can only see the country in the Acast one.
You got to click on the country.
What? Okay. Welcome to our 161 downloads in Adelaide. That's very exciting.
Yep.
So
The prophet shall be recognised in his own town.
lots of people from Sydney and Melbourne liking it. Some people in Perth.
Yeah.
You know some people in Perth?
Well, it's not just people who follow me listening to the show, but yeah.
I suspect it is.
And in
And
the United States, this is what I love doing. Seattle, Houston, Chicago, Austin, New York, Tulsa, LA,
Tulsa.
somewhere called Boone. Look up. Boone.
Whoever
It's
is
in
listening to us
North
in
Carolina.
Guam, I'm very pleased to have you.
We got Guam people, Orlando, Norway, Sweden, India, Georgia, France, Turkey. Where are they in Turkey? They're in Istanbul.
I haven't seen this, so I'm actually very excited.
Akasago International Corporation has a listener. It's the major international producer of fragrances.
Takasago. Ah, thank you. Arigato.
Mushi desu to our Japanese listener. Is there anything you'd like to explain to our listeners, or are we just grateful that people are listening?
I basically am just grateful that people are paying attention.
Isn't it nice?
I don't have any, because nobody's also asked any questions other than mildly insulting us. We've just put something up on Instagram that nobody has responded to.
Yeah.
In fact, only 2 people have seen. We possibly should have posted it earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That's basically it. Welcome to the podcast. So nice to have people listening.
So the episodes that people are listening to at the moment are in January. That's when we did them.
And you can tell because it's so hot and we're always wearing very sexy outfits.
We're not. The temperature, there's not a lot of temperature regulation here in the pod.
It's very cold.
In the studio. And it's now July.
You can tell because I'm drinking dark beer.
And I'm not drinking at all.
That's very good. James has a problem.
I didn't drink at all for the last few days because I was comatose.
That's why you feel so bad. You're withdrawing.
No, because I
got the
had a rosé today because Father bought 2 rosés. I couldn't stop him. You ever tried to explain to a Polish person that you wouldn't be having a drink at lunch?
Oh, you saw him?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. How is Father Oleg?
He's great. He came with me and he bought a clothes rack.
Great.
And
you need a clothes rack.
That's what my wife said. So I took Father to buy a clothes rack. And then he told my family that he'd stolen the clothes rack from Kmart. My mum was there. And my mum said, "Did you really steal the clothes rack?" And
Father?
He just went, it was a lot of like, some say, it's that he wasn't lying at any point, but he was like, he was like, "I got this clothes rack." And they said, "Got?" And he said, "Some say got, some say stole." And then my mum really didn't know what to say, and it was an exciting morning with Father Oleg there.
Well, apparently my parents have watched some of this. So if you're watching, Mum and Dad, I love you.
Has anyone at your work watched it?
I have no idea. If you work with me, please never bring this up in the workplace.
That was
it would be very uncomfortable.
Because you were cautious. You know, this coming up, you were like, like on the day we went to the office to push play and start them coming out.
I possibly will get fired.
You were like, people will know what I think now. Because people know what I think. Yeah,
I'm more cagey.
KGB. He works for the secret state police.
I'll talk to you later, Vladimir Putin. Anyways, I think that's...
Oh, you want to stop this one?
Well, I kind of feel like maybe it was boring and we have nothing to say.
Stay tuned for the next episode of the Catecast.
Woo!
We could release this at the same time as the next one in a double header.
Well, I feel like we should follow it with the 9.5. Yeah. Right, if you're like 9 episodes in or something... Yeah.
Well, just as even like, I don't know, we call this a bonus one, but like, what are the...
I'm interested.
What are the avenues for people if they're this far to do after this?
Yeah. What do you think they are, Jimmy?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know who's listening to it 100%. There's definitely some...
Well, we haven't released any yet, so we don't know.
That's a good point. I mean, maybe that's the right thing to do. Maybe it's not... I like the... We've got the setup. I mean... What would be like? Part of me goes like, "What's a useful content, right?" And there's some things that we're not doing, on purpose, and maybe even just like for, whatever behind the scenes things, so that we have something to release. Then, as to like why, like, Benedict died, and there's all this stuff coming out now about he didn't get the proper funeral. Francis looked this way at the funeral, right? And this is all like gross stuff that we're not. Getting involved in the politics of it. But that is what most Catholic media on the internet...
Right, assumably when this is released, it's going to be a few months down the track.
Well, that's part of it, is a lack of timeliness, but also why we don't think it's good.
Right, that's good. No, that's good.
Do that. Why make this instead of... There's a more successful version of this show that really appeals to a rusted on, cashed up segment of, Catholic, conservative, whatever, internet thing.
For sure.
That I think is...
Yeah. I mean, the reasons that I specifically don't want to do that
is
because I've been down that hole and I've seen other people go down it, and I think it can ruin people's faith. I think it can, like...
Scandal.
Yeah, your faith can become doom porn, right? Where it's like, what's the message of the week? What's Pope Francis done today? What's the biggest, worst thing that's happened in the world, and like it's all doomed and it's all fucked and all this sort of stuff. And you know, I've been there and I get it. I get why that's attractive, but I just have no interest in like.
You don't want to go to it.
I don't want to produce something like that where it's like, putting more shit on the fire. You know, I think for me, the reason I wanted to do this was because I want to do something beautiful for God, right? Like
a muggeridge.
Yeah, well, you know, we've mentioned a couple of times. I do the catechism with like reverts, Catholic people who've been raised Catholic, who are sacramented Catholic, who've come back to the church, who probably don't know anything, right? Because I think the reason I've been sort of singled out to do that is because I was in that situation and I did it all the hard way.
Yeah.
I learned it all myself, and now I get to do it for other people, which is great because it's like, oh, here's everything that I learned over 10 years of just like hardship and difficulty and suffering and stuff.
Here's a pleasant version that, and also like, I think most people don't. It's like it's something to check off intellectually, right? Where you go, oh, I do consent to all of these propositions, and now I can live.
Even if I don't remember them, right? Yeah.
Well, there are things that like
it's so hard to remember it all. Yeah,
and things are worded very strangely, and like the actual intricacies of the faith are really strange. And then like the main meat and potatoes of being a Catholic is like living in community, having a congregation, and figuring out like, are we having a kids' disco?
Sure. Yeah, and so
that's the day-to-day.
Yeah, and I didn't want to like perpetuate that cycle of negative news, negative like Catholic media. I wanted to do something where it's like, oh, you can listen to this while you're doing the dishes or while you're putting the kids to bed or whatever, and maybe you learn something. Maybe it's like, hopefully it's rewarding. Hopefully you get to sort of struggle with it a bit, come to a full understanding of it. Maybe the things that we're doing is completely inadequate for that, but hopefully it's not for everyone. And then the other, like, exactly like you're saying, which is like, where do I go from here, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's I want to set people up to actually go and live Christian lives, virtuous lives.
Which like starts. I mean, if this is a jumping off point to just turn up at mass,
that's the idea.
people should go, and we're just having a conversation about not wanting to go. With Sam, but like not wanting to go, not because you don't want to go, but feeling like you have to get yourself right before you show up.
I don't understand what it is, and I feel like maybe I need to understand better. Yeah, I need to get myself like into some sort of like shape before I go. Whatever it is.
But this is I mean, we'll probably get to this at some point, talking about what the mass is. But the mass is meant to be the thing, I think. It's one, as well as being a like the summit, it's also the font. It's the thing that gets you into that shape.
Yeah.
Like it is meant to be an improving experience. Not that you have to like get good enough to go to mass. Going to mass is the thing that helps you become good enough to keep going.
Yes,
ideally.
and the other thing is like if you think that you're going to do it by yourself, like you're just dead wrong, right? Like, and there's just no way that, like, I mean, you could. It would just be really hard and pointless, and you shouldn't, because there are people who want to help you. There are people who are like very keen to help you, and you should make yourself open to those people.
I do struggle to be there for it.
Well, states in life, James, right?
Well,
like
my
you're married
cup is like,
with
I don't
3
want to say
kids.
my cup's full because there's always more stuff you can reach out and do. But there was definitely a time in my life where I was able to be more helpful to people.
Was that before you had 3 kids?
Yeah, it was before I had 3 kids. It was definitely before I had 3 kids.
Yeah, states in life. And so, and the other thing is that I definitely hope is that there are people who are currently going to mass, who are like attempting to understand this stuff better, who want to learn more. And it's like, if you're that person listening to this now, watching this now, it's like, say hello to someone, right? Like if you see somebody who's never been at mass before, and you're always like, oh, I don't want to do it because like I don't know or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you've done something. You've listened to this. Like, go and introduce yourself. Just say, I don't know.
It's really hard to go and to not know people.
It's so hard. Well, so for example,
it's easier for me than anyone I know, and I find it hard.
There's a friend of ours who I won't name, but he was an Anglican, and he converted to Catholicism about 2 years ago with his wife and his child. And I was with him at mass about 12 months ago, and there was a Lutheran family who had just left the Lutheran church in sort of like real hardship, right? Like they've sort of left a whole life behind, and they'd started coming to mass, like huge balls on them, right?
Big deal.
Big deal. Like this is a life-changing thing. It's their first mass they've come to, and it's like they're terrified. They're having coffee after mass in the little tea room, and I was talking to our friend who's an Anglican convert, and he'd been in the church for about 12 months, and so had his wife, and so had his child.
Oh, I now know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I said to him...
No way that took so long.
I said to him, you should go and talk to those people.
Yeah.
You should go and introduce yourself. And he was like, oh, I shouldn't. Like, you should do that. You've been here for a long time. And it's like, exactly. Like, they're going to be terrified to meet me, right? Like, the ex-seminarian who, like, teaches classes and stuff, who it's like coming over, and it's just like, I don't know anything. Oh, don't ask me of anything. It's like, no, you're the guy who's just swum the Tiber. Right, you're fresh out of the water. It's still dripping off of you. Yeah. Right, like
also, you've got a come out in life. You got a family.
I've just come over. Kids. Like, let me tell you exactly where you need to go and what you need to do right now to make your life easier. So I don't know how to do that. And if you're somebody who's just converted or just started coming back to mass, and you see people who are like that, it's like you're the person who's just done it. There's no one better.
It's so hard to figure out what. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to figure out what your state in life is.
Are you single? Are you married? Are you a priest?
Like you can say is what it is, but conforming to it is very challenging.
I think C.S. Lewis uses this example in Mere Christianity. He says, if you want to teach like a child mathematics, like you as the adult is the worst person to teach them because you just think it's obvious. You get the kid who's just learnt it to teach it to the kid who needs to learn it because they're going to go...
Virtuosic musicians are really bad music
I thought this was really hard, but I actually just figured it out, and let me tell you where the shortcut is.
There's an enthusiasm there.
Yeah, and it's just like, I've just done it.
That's a nice flip on those who can't teach.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because by not being able to do it, you develop the ability to teach it.
Well, and the other thing is, if you're an old and haggard Catholic like me, right, like maybe you're not the best person to approach converts and be like, hey, what's up? You know, like... It's probably better to...
do a fine job. Do an excellent job.
I try, yeah. But like the other thing is how I do it is like I go, have you met James? Have you met so-and-so? Have you met so-and-so?
You know, and now that I have a family, I get to go, hey, I'm going to step out. You're going to talk to this guy and this guy and this guy.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're like, there's going to be people more suited to your state in life that are going to be able to help you better.
I've seen it. I've seen a non-organic version of this at mega churches.
Yeah, sure.
Where there's like people in shirts taking names and lists and...
Here's my name tag. I'm Joe.
Proper coffees are coming out. There's a coffee order.
Yeah.
Volunteer and you can work here. And like, there is a thoughtful way to do it.
It's just not organic.
It's pretty gross.
It's a bureaucratic. It's like how a company manages...
Well, it's taking out
like intake.
Right, but the reason the company does that is because it's... The thing has to happen... And it is like a psychologically hard, draining thing to like meet people and meet new people and expose yourself and be like to be human, to not be just a. I'm thinking about this a lot this week about being like expressing this really badly, but I think about the percentage of yourself you're able to be with different people, and it's a low percentage for most human interactions. It's a very surface level. And even then, it's like sometimes years before you start plumbing. Interesting, spontaneous, just being able to go, fuck that guy, when someone asks you a question. And then, if you do it too soon, then I don't know. It's hard. Also because you're becoming a new person with the other person. This is probably like the C.S. Lewis thing about A, B, and C dies, and B loses the person that C brought out in A.
Yeah.
But like... It's not just showing bits of yourself. That's sort of an atomized, weird neoliberal way to think about it.
Yeah.
By meeting a new person, you're becoming a new person in relationship.
For sure.
With them. And this is a really draining, scary thing because you're losing part of the person you were beforehand. Yeah. And there's all these reasons why... You know those things in life that are fucking way harder than they should be, like responding to an email? And you go like, there's other stuff here going that I'm not appreciating. I think this is true of meeting new people. It's a really weird, mystical...
Yeah.
Thousands of things are going on. And so just to say, here's Gary, he's in a shirt, he's going to smile, he's going to nod. It gets people in, it incorporates them into it, and it means that you don't have to depend on someone feeling good that day.
Yeah.
And having a normal human. So I get it.
Yeah.
It's just one must never do it.
It's just gross.
It's really gross.
Yeah. Yeah. So to circle back to our original point.
Please.
Which is that, we could be doing the commentary of like, and obviously like I want to, like it's very sad that Benedict XVI died. like, you know, I loved that man. I loved that man. Like, you told me that he died.
I'm sorry, yeah.
And I cried when I was washing your dishes in the sink.
Man, there's another thing I want to say about you crying washing my dishes.
It's normal. I'm always crying washing your dishes.
Just detail.
Anyways, but
There was definitely a girl over that Jack was trying to impress.
That was me
like,
trying. I was like trying to not cry in front of her.
Sorry, I love this man. He's 95. It was really sweet.
Yeah, I was trying to not cry in front of her.
Yeah, you were. And you did a great job.
Thank you. I went outside and cried by myself. But yeah, like we could do this sort of like commentary thing, but I just want to do something that's like beautiful, that's educational, that's useful.
Yeah.
And I think what I want people to take out of this is like, it's not that scary. It might be hard, but like it's doable, and all this stuff like has some depth to it, and there's always more depth to get to. And like if you're like not sure, you know, the best way to try is to put your foot in the water.
We'll just start doing it. And also like, I think a lot of these that we've gone through, that you start doing them and you go, oh fuck, there's the PhD in that sentence. And it's like, you don't really have to just keep going until you're sort of, because there can come a point where you feel satisfied. And then you can move on to the next one. But
and what I've
just keep digging around.
Like the great romance of my life has been falling in love with Christ, and falling in love with the church, right? Where it's like I am yet to be satisfied. Like if you see the pile, and literally it's a pile of books next to my bed.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's seen Stalker.
Yeah.
When they go back to the guy's house.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I know. My room is just like stacked full of books about Catholicism and Christ and all sort of stuff. Because it's just like I've never gotten tired, and I've never got to the end of it. And it's like you can go as far as you want. And for me, it's been 10 years of reading and thinking and meditating. And honestly, the only thing I can say is that like I know so fucking little. Yeah. Like there's so much more to learn that I'm so excited to learn. And it's like, man, if you think that you've got to the end of it, you're like, well, I've done the compendium and I know everything. It's like, man, there's so much more. It's so great. I fucking love it.
It is your thing, much more than music.
So yeah, well, for you it's other things. For you it's music and comedy and all this sort of stuff. And I just like couldn't care less. Right? I would rather go home and read Pope Benedict.
Well, look, it'll be interesting when time comes. Maybe you've been preserved from having a family for so long so that you would have time for all of this reading. But it is having a family. Reading is the habit that is I have found the hardest to sustain through the rhythms of family life. It's very hard. And I can really see why the only people who manage, like why we have, it seemed weird to me that we had academia when I was at university. It's just like, you just fucking read whatever you want. You think whatever you can do that in your own time. Why do you have to formalize that in a job? Well, it's because not everyone's life is as calm and relaxed as university students' life. And when you're an adult, you have all these, like, it's important to have an office to go to from 9 to 4 where you get to read what you want to read.
Well, the other thing
if you're going to have that person.
Well, the other thing is that, like, the other thing about why you had this person in society is because these were normally monks and priests. Right? Like, these are normally people who've dedicated their lives to learning, and that's it. They don't have families, so they can just learn as much as they can. And then they teach you what, and you do it, like, in the university thing, it's like this minor experience of, like, what it's like to be religious. Right? Like, you have no attachments.
Literally a cloistered.
Right. Like, you go to this, like, weird building
with like in America, there's a dormitory.
Exactly. All that stuff.
Fraternity.
You're sort of, like, imitating the life of a monk.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
the architecture's the same.
Yeah. And it's because, like, it comes from somewhere. And the thing that it comes from is, like, there was a time in the world where it was possible to just completely dedicate your life to this thing.
Yeah.
And it's still possible in very limited frameworks.
But you don't typically think of a monk being selfish. But I had a little taste. I stayed at a monastery for like 4 days after my wife had gone back to New Zealand, and we just had our first child, and we were moving to Melbourne. It was like very frustrating, difficult, but it was just like 4 days to like think and read and be alone. And it's like, oh man, I get it. Like, I get that a life of isolated prayer, even to take away the reading, if you just had a vocation to like pray and like whatever, like what a Buddhist monk would do, just like look internally.
Well, we
forever.
only think
But
of it
there are
as
great
Buddhist
treasures to-
because like it's not alive in the Western imagination, but it should be because it does exist and it is actually how our civilization was built on these sorts of things.
People going very, very far inside themselves,
and it's like, it's selfish, right? But it's not because you're not doing it for yourself.
It's a life that is. It's a lonely life.
There is a
life.
There is a
cut off
way in
from
which
other
it's
people and
easier
things.
because you don't have to have all those responsibilities, right?
Yeah.
Like the responsibilities that you have as a husband and a father. It's harder in the ways that like your life is not hard, right? Where it's like you were saying the other week, like, well, I'm never alone, right?
Yeah.
Like I might be lonely, but it's never quiet. All these sorts of things. And it's
I'm
like,
never bored. I haven't had the opportunity to be bored in
Right.
a long time.
Yeah.
And I remember finding that to be the most revolting thing in the world was being bored, and now I long for boredom.
whereas if you had gone to a monastery,
No, I'd be so bored.
yeah, you wouldn't cope, Jimmy.
Well, we see how maybe I could grow.
It'll be a weird
That's on
monastery.
the other side of boredom.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's why I'm doing it. Why are you doing it, James? What do you think that...
Trying to grow my YouTube numbers, trying to make a little money.
I mean, that's true.
I love doing it.
Yeah.
I love talking about it and thinking about it. It's also very nice to get to hang out with you and to leave the house on a Tuesday night. But I think there was a lot of sugar in it as an idea for me, and I don't know how to describe why I do anything other than it seemed like a good piece of work to make. And the fact that we get to make it with Sam is crazy.
Who's bloody great, who's done
Very
all
great.
of this and is doing all of this.
But I think if it
and
if it
he's
wasn't fun or it
so
didn't look
great.
good, I would have just stopped
Yeah,
doing it. So for me, the weirder thing is why am I still doing it?
yeah,
I'm still getting a lot out of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because it's not... Like, yeah, it's... I mean, I've done this book, like, I don't know, like dozens of times with people.
Who's the most exciting person you've ever done it with?
Not you.
Please.
And it's never boring. I don't know, like even just going over the basics over and over and over again. It's like, or there's always something where you go, oh, actually, I hadn't thought about that way, or that's something that hits me now that didn't hit me then. So for example, like I was doing this 7 years ago before you were married, and like my other friends are married and stuff.
Yeah.
And now when I do it, it's like getting into marriage. It's like, so I've just finished with a group of married people. And I probably would have breezed through that a couple of years ago, right? Where it's just like, yep, this is what it is, this is what it is, this is what it is, right? You just hit the theory. But now I can sort of like, I observe the lived experience, and because I'm like your friend, it's like, I try and live it with you. And then you're like, oh, hang on a tick, like this stuff is like super important. Like it's just so because that actually is going to tie everything together for these people. And if this doesn't make sense, none of it's going to make sense because it's the day-to-day living of it that's going to have to do it. And that's like great to become a bigger, weirder person inside, which is a
the point, isn't it?
favorite phrase of yours. Yeah.
Bigger, weirder person on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever said that before.
No, you have. You've said that a lot.
No, it's true. It's true, man. It's nice having a memory that's so bad that people quote you back to you, and you go, "What an absolutely beautiful thing that you've just said."
All right, I don't know. Is that...
No, that one I do. At some point I have to get back to my wife, who I'm married to.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. I hope you can continue to join us.
They're doing Young Dads tomorrow night.
This was just our sort of like rehash. This is a sort of like bonus episode, I suppose. But yeah, we wanted to sort of like talk about why we're doing it and hopefully get something out of it. And we're going to have a way for you to like comment back to us at some point, and we're very keen to hear what people
I think by the time this
want.
is out, there's probably a Q&A.
I hope so. I really hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope
But
it's
at some
like
point we have to
James
actually
said
start-
this disgusting thing about dogs.
It's a sticking point. It's a sticking point.
Can we discuss that further? Or
There's a lot that I want to cut from the show.
there should be.